Even if you've never played Lotería before, you've probably seen some of its images and iconography. On the surface, Lotería, or Mexican Bingo, is a simple game of chance that allows players of all ages to take part in the game. It can be played for fun at home, or for money and prizes at ferias. In this video, we'll explore Lotería's origins and history, and show that Lotería is not just a game para pasar el tiempo, but a cultural tradition with iconic imagery that has been adapted over the last 600 years. Finally, we'll end by checking out some artists who are reimagining Lotería's more problematic images for the 21st century. Lotería officially begins with the gritón or cantor kicking off the game with a simple corre. So, corre. Lotería is a traditional game of chance consisting of 54 cards, each with a different image, name, and number. Participants play with one or more of the 20 tablas available. The player's tablas have 16 randomly selected card images like La Luna or El Árbol, distributed on a 4x4 grid. Similar to bingo, the objective of the game is to be the first person to complete a specific pattern established at the beginning of the game. Typically, players fill the entire tabla. This is called tabla llena. However, Lotería de Pozo is also a popular variant, where a pattern such as a row, column, diagonal line, or square is filled instead. This variant was most likely influenced by bingo. Customarily, players fill their tablas with beans, coins, or rocks, but any small chip or marker will do. Really though, you should use beans. Pinto to be exact. Lotería officially begins with the gritón, or cantor, kicking off the game with a simple corre, or with a phrase like se va y se corre con la vieja del pozole, or corre y se va corriendo con. El cantor then randomly pulls a card from the deck, and any card that appears on the player's tabla gets marked. This is repeated until a player completes the desired pattern and calls out Buena, or Lotería. When playing for money, the prize is based on the funds collected from the players purchasing their tablas. The quota collected by El Cantor is called La Vaquita, a reference to a custom in rural Mexican communities where a vaquita is bought by the community as a holiday meal for all. The winner is the one who completes the agreed upon template correctly. If there are several winners, the pot is divided equally. El Cantor will then verify that the player has indeed marked their cards correctly. Like most things Mestizo, Lotería has a long history dating back to 15th century Europe. Loteria's origin story is a mix of influences from the Italians, the French, and of course, the Spanish. Originally called Loto, the game consisted of drawing 5 numbers out of a total of 90, which is similar to bingo, as both games can trace their roots back to Italian Loto. Notably, bingo itself was originally called Beano, as players would mark their cards with beans and yell Beano if they won. Lotería evolved and began to incorporate Italian and Spanish decks of cards, giving the game a more colorful element and further popularizing it. First, Lotería cards were influenced by Neapolitan smorfia, a system originating from the Italian city of Naples that converts dreams and everyday life events into numbers. The word smorfia comes from Morpheus, the Greek god associated with sleep and dreams. The numbers can then be used to play the lottery. The French contribution was through a game, biribi, or cavanal, similar to roulette. Players would bet on a number from 1 to 70, and a banker would draw one of these numbers out of a bag. Biribi boards later became image-centric and were richly illustrated, making them more expensive. Third, Lotería was influenced by the Spanish game turned into stories, aucas, and by the board game El Juego de la Oca, which is still played to this day. Both aucas and ocas derive their names from the Catalan and Spanish words for goose, respectively. Both also have various images that would later make their way into Lotería. Finally, and to the horror of Mexican mothers everywhere, Lotería cards were influenced by tarot cards, created by Italians and modified by the French in the late 15th century. Tarot cards have 3 elements now standard on Lotería cards: a number, a name, and an image. Spanish colonization brought Lotería to Nueva España, or present-day Mexico. And since its arrival to the new continent, there have been many versions of Lotería, a mix of the old and new. While La Lotería Nacional was not officially established until 1769 in Nueva España, gambling, card playing, and other games, including Lotería, were commonly played throughout the colony prior to this. Initially, Lotería was played exclusively by the upper classes in the new Spanish colony. However, the game quickly spread to all social classes throughout Nueva España. Notably, Lotería spread in traveling ferias and was common at botillerías in the 1800s and early 1900s. Through ferias, Lotería was introduced to far-flung pueblos and ranchos on the weekends. At botillerías, Lotería, along with other forms of gambling and illicit activities, became a common fixture. While the newly formed Mexican government took issue with the gambling, Lotería had by then established itself firmly in the fledgling nation. Around this time, Lotería also gained an oral component. To make the game more attention-grabbing, organizers invented couplets and verses around the various cards. The volume and bravado with which they recited verses like "Que brinco pegó tu hermana, la rana," kept players' attention and attracted even more curious people to the game. Thus, the role of the gritón, or cantor, was born. El Cantor's cleverness with verses and his own particular style helped bolster the popularity of the game. Satire and references to contemporary events and politics have long been part of the wordplay involved in these Lotería verses. Fue un grito mexicano, la campana ha sonado, la campana. El Cantor's approach would depend on the social context in which the game was being played. For example, at a church bazaar, El Cantor would most likely use tame humor, while a game played at a botillería would be much more innuendo-laden and risque. Lo meto seco, lo saco mojado, lo pongo en el suelo y se queda parado. El cantarito. During the Mexican War of Independence, Lotería became a daily pastime among soldiers out in the field, as the game provided them with a much-needed distraction. Returning from the battlefields to their pueblos and ranchos, soldiers helped to further spread the game. Prior to industrialization, all tablas and decks of cards were handmade. The craftsmanship required limited the number of Lotería sets that could be made and gave each set a unique touch. Many of these older tablas did not have numbers or words. Tablas were made from tin, fabric, or paper that had been painted by popular artists, some of whom specialized in this art form. Instead, family, friends, and vecinos would paint their own sets. Central to the first manufactured Lotería sets are Mexican lithographers José Guadalupe Posada and Manuel Manilla, who are also famous for their artistic depictions of calaveras. Many of Posada's Lotería images made their way into the still popular Lotería El Gallo. In her book, Lotería, Caltech Spanish lecturer Gloria Arjona points out that industrialization not only brought about the proliferation of cheap, homogeneous, mass-produced literature and board games, but it also brought about the urban consumer class who ultimately bought these goods. In 1887, Don Clemente Jacques, a French businessman, founded a printing press and began to produce labels of products, invitations to parties, playing cards, and, of course, his own Lotería set. Jacques would also package military rations and would include a small game of Lotería for soldiers to play, continuing the tradition of soldiers playing Lotería wherever they went. This most popular version of Lotería, the Don Clemente Gallo version, or simply Lotería El Gallo, has dominated ever since. Today, the owners of Don Clemente Gallo Pasatiempos own the registered trademark of these most renowned Lotería images and continue to manufacture the game in Mexico. Other popular Lotería sets are Lotería Lío, Lotería Gacela, and Lotería de mi Tierra. However, there are countless versions of Lotería. One notable historical version of Lotería was one sanctioned by the Catholic Church in the 1930s. This version of Lotería consisted of Catholic images, objects, and concepts, and served both to promote Catholicism and to educate parishioners on holy Catholic traditions. Like other popular board games, Lotería brings back memories of home and family. However, unlike Scrabble or Monopoly, Lotería is not just a game, but a cultural tradition with its roots stretching far back in history. Its iconic imagery is vibrant and eye-catching, and a source of pride, celebrating Mexican culture. In a 2020 Time magazine article, Arjona said, "Lotería is not only a game, it's a tradition. It's part of our identity." Because of its inclusive nature, players of all ages can participate. While your very own lucky tabla is a must, no actual skill is required to play. Around Christmas and New Year's, after a party, grandchildren gather around grandma to call the cards. When you hear, corre se va corriendo con, the game is on to fill your tabla first and win the delicious prize candy. Lotería has changed throughout time, usually adapting to contemporary culture. Arjona points out that Lotería images are, quote, a reflection of colonial times. These images display our prejudices, display the stereotypes. Lotería features 9 people, all stereotypical depictions of the 3 main racial groups of colonial Nueva España: the indigenous, the European, and the African. Indeed, Lotería's problematic and stereotypical images are one of the reasons why it's getting a millennial update today. Mike Alfaro, who created the popular and Instagrammable Millennial Lotería, said, quote, "The original Lotería is a little bit problematic if you look at it now. You see the gender stereotypes. You also see colorism reflected. So I wanted to make a parody, a satire of the old Lotería, acknowledging the problems and flipping them around." Millennial Lotería reimagines Lotería for a new and growing generation in America, with new cards updated to better fit the times, including cards on pride, feminism, social media, and more. Other contemporary Lotería artists have made Women Power Lotería, Star Wars Lotería, and yes, even Pandemic Lotería, to name a few. Another modern-day Lotería artist, Román Martínez, who designed the Star Wars Lotería and El Cine Lotería, said, quote, "Lotería is universal. It's just been ingrained in our culture, and it's been adapted so many times." Lotería has evolved over time and has been used for a wide variety of purposes, from being used as a template for scratch-off lottery tickets to a promotional tool for the Texas fast food chain Whataburger, to having its very own interactive Google Doodle in 2019. It's commonly used in schools as an educational tool to help students learn Spanish, and most recently was used to promote a certain U.S. presidential candidate. Lotería is as popular as it's ever been and has become a staple of Mestizo culture with deep roots in earlier European games that has been shaped by the New World where it was brought. Moreover, Lotería has blossomed as the Mestizo diaspora continues to spread it in the US and beyond. A mix of the old and new that charms players with its simplicity. Lotería is more than just a game. Lotería is a cultural tradition with a long history and iconic imagery that is constantly being reimagined by each generation that plays it.